This was it. I had collected all the fragments of the Triforce of Wisdom and gotten a pretty explicit clue thanks to the game manual for the location of level 9, apparently one final challenge. I'd expected more to happen when I finished the last dungeon, but really couldn't be happier that the game didn't just end. The red ring was the last item mentioned in the manual I hadn't found, and now I knew where it was. I assumed there are more heart containers to fill out your health bar. There had been a couple I'd found out in the overworld early on. Aside from maybe that one mysterious grave in the graveyard, I have no idea where these might be though, and didn't relish the idea of trying to burn every tree or bomb every rock out on the overworld looking for them. I headed back to the mountains, running a few errands on the way to make sure I had full health and a red potion. I'd already picked up a new magic shield not long before wrapping up level 8. Now that I knew what I was looking for, the only screen with 2 clear rocks was at the western edge of the highest level of the mountain. This screen was pointed to by a rock arrow at the east I'd wondered about since much earlier in the game, and was right next to a dead end with a ton of blue Lynels and a convenient potion cave. The Lynels seemed to be good bomb farming. This must be it. Nothing had triggered automatically, so I started using those bombs. With only the ominous music track as company, I started exploring level 9 to see what kind of incremental progress I could make. While I had a red potion at the ready, as soon as I started running into a bunch of wizrobes again, I wondered how long it would last. The familiar combination of stun orbs and like legs also made me all but certain I'd be losing my magic shield again. Enemies were falling a lot quicker than they had in level 6 at least, thanks to the magical sword, which made me wish I had found a couple extra heart containers somewhere before tackling that dungeon originally. My first foray inward took me in a counterclockwise path that simply led me back to the entrance, without any other obvious paths to try. Good thing my bombs were stocked up. I pretty quickly started finding hidden doors, meaning there were probably a bunch of them, even though I was trying to use the map and be smart about what I bombed. I've been trying to clear all rooms of enemies, but this had already cost me 1 potion use. Switching tactics, I explored obvious paths first, and ran through rooms that were tough if I could. The first secret path led to stairs that dropped me into the northern part of the dungeon. Here, I ran into a new enemy type, the Patra. Having full health and a ranged sword attack here was a great help, but it didn't last long. These things were tough to take out without any damage, given how quickly their defensive ring expanded. Other ranged attacks were ineffective. Pushing on, it wasn't long before I'd followed the obvious path as far as I could, and I needed to start bombing again. It was quickly becoming clear this dungeon was not only full of dangerous enemies, but also big and complex. Looking at the rooms I had already traversed, I tried to pick out places to bomb that looked likely to have doors. The magical key was also coming in very handy given quite a few locked doors. I ended up collecting a number of keys here anyway, but knew I didn't need to worry about them. At the eastern edge of the map there was a sequence of rooms with hidden doors. A second encounter with the Patra won me the map, but also cost me my second potion use. The map confirmed the substantial scale of the dungeon. Its layout was shaped like a skull. There was a clue room here at the northern edge where the old man told me to go to the next room. I didn't bomb any walls here right away since I hadn't fully explored, but I took a note to return once I'd exhausted other possibilities. There were only 2 walls to bomb given the man himself was blocking the northern wall. Continuing to visit new rooms, I came across an interesting one with a block pathway down the middle. The blocks didn't budge, so I figured there must be an entrance to the north or south. I passed through the adjacent room to the north earlier, so I took a note to return there as well. With the map in hand, I could see there should be another room north of where I got the map, that I hadn't tried to bomb into before. This led to a tough fight that I managed to get through fairly unscathed. I tried pushing all the blocks in the room, then resorted to bombing in the one direction I thought there could be a space. This led to another tough fight, and a staircase. I really thought this would probably just take me to another part of the dungeon since my path had mostly dead-ended, but it was an item room, and it contained the red ring. Admittedly, the dungeon felt designed to push you in this direction from the start, but I was really pleased to have found this, and found it fairly early in the dungeon. This would surely help weather the wizrobes a bit better, and whatever else was to come. I'd taken 2 notes to come back to in this area. I'd forget one of them until a bit later, but the other spurred me to backtrack to the old man with a clue about going to the next room. The room to the east of him was the Red Ring room, and I'd already been there, so I tried west and found a door. My bombs were starting to run low, and I accidentally used my last one here in the fight since I'd left them equipped. The 2-block layout in this room was a familiar sight, and pushing the left block again opened up a secret passage. This one led to the southwest area of the dungeon. With my life whittling down and no potions remaining, I started avoiding combat where I could more aggressively. There were a number of obvious rooms to explore here, so I focused on that. I came across 3 more staircases fairly quickly. 2 seemed to connect to each other and cover just a short distance, which was a little weird. The other was guarded by a patra I took on to access it. This led to a dead end with more wizrobes. I cleared them, but was out of bombs and couldn't search the walls. I'd have to return here as well. Continuing north, I hit a room with a ton of like-likes. Pincered near the door, I somehow threw my boomerang right through a like without stunning it and got grabbed. I think it must have been invulnerable after my first sword hit. This time, I wasn't stunned and I was able to attack my way out quickly enough that I didn't lose my shield. Beyond this, I found some stairs to the northwest, but backtracked to try to more thoroughly search this area first. I picked up a few more bombs somewhere. I found a couple of additional mini-bosses, including a patra that I ran past. A blue centipede proved so fast I had to kill it, but it also took most of my remaining health. Thankfully, it dropped some bombs. A little further along, I encountered another man with a clue. Eyes of Skull has a secret. The meaning here was pretty obvious, but I hadn't found my way to either eye yet. Even from the eastern one I'd explored around. I tried to push on toward the western eye, taking out a red centipede that gave me a bit more health, and finding some more bombs in the area. Before long, I stumbled into a dark room with more like-likes. As one moved toward me, I panicked, wanting to light the room and make sure I could see where I could move to get away from it. I should have just exited and reset the spawns, but I foolishly ran into my own candle flame, trying to avoid a stun orb on my right. This knocked me back to the door and right into the path of the Shield Eater. This time, I guess I was too slow with my sword, and once again found myself without magical protection. Nevertheless, I pushed on to make use of my remaining health resources and bombs. I found a path that connected back to the northeast of the dungeon, then circled back to the southwest from there. I saved a single bomb so that I could return to that dead end in the northwest that I thought surely held a secret, and with that last bomb, I found it. Down to 2 hearts, the fight beyond would prove too much though, and with no magic shield and not much room to maneuver, I succumbed to the wizrobe onslaught. I'd have to return here once again, and with more bombs just in case, since I thought there must surely be something there. I left the dungeon to fully heal and pick up another red potion. I'd been collecting enough money this was easily afforded, but I didn't have so much left I felt I could throw away more on another magic shield for now. That was a big risk against the blue wizrobes, but so be it. I probably should have picked up some more bombs or farmed the blue Lionels outside, but I had a few and was eager to get back to the mystery of the room where I died. To get back there, I realized I'd need to pass back through the northeast again. I'd passed right by a room I'd taken note to return to before, but had forgotten about until now. I planned to bomb the south wall to try to reach a corridor that ran down the center of the adjacent room. This idea panned out, and I had just enough bombs to take me into the eye on the eastern side. After a wizard fight, I picked up the compass almost without realizing it, since it spawned directly beneath me. This revealed the secret of the western eye, the boss. I wasn't in such a rush to explore that then. Back in the room where I died, it was a tough fight without a magic shield, and I'd taken damage returning. Fortunately, a fairy drop at the end helped out a bit, and I'd gotten a few more bombs along the way. I tried all the blocks here first since the layout was familiar from level 8 and reaching the magic key. I was relieved when the same block on the middle right pushed inward, allowing me to save the bombs I had. Here, I found the silver arrows. I wasn't sure what these did. Each arrow still cost a ruby to fire, but I figured it must be more damage or for something special beyond. I continued on in this northwestern area, making sure I'd found everything I could. Much to my chagrin, I found that mini-bosses had respawned after leaving the dungeon, unlike earlier levels. I returned to the room where I had lost my shield, but didn't find anything new in the rooms I hadn't reached previously. A number of rooms had one-way doors that didn't allow me to reverse course, without looping through the northeast and southeast areas again. This trek was a bit tedious, but also restocked my bombs and helped fill up my wallet. With everything seemingly explored, I had one remaining note about a dead end I had reached at the center of the northern edge of the map. Since the only path here is from a staircase, I thought there must surely be more, once again. A gap on the map indicated a room to the west, which turned out to have another set of stairs. These now led to the final empty spot on my map near the western eye. I must be close, but another Patra stood in my way. Only a couple of hearts remaining, and the boss in the next room, I downed my first potion charge. Entering. There was Ganon. The Triforce of Wisdom seemed to light the room, but Ganon remained invisible, teleporting around, slinging fireballs at me. I wanted to gather what information I could, so ran through all my items, including the silver arrows, but to no effect. I continued trying to chase him, see if I could land a hit or something, but the fireballs proved obnoxious at knocking me back in exactly the directions I was trying to advance and strike. I unfortunately failed to pause and heal in time to use my second potion before dying, which was a waste. It sort of worked out. While back on the overworld and getting healed up, I had just enough money to buy a single potion charge and a magic shield. The magic shield I had to go to the secret shop I found a while ago. That is the only place that sells it for 90 rubies. That left me just a few rubies for the bow and arrow. The magic shield was the only new idea I had for Ganon. Maybe I could block or reflect his fireballs and he'd decide his invisibility was futile, revealing himself or changing his pattern. This sequence was a bit of a chore. I had to walk around quite a bit to get ready to head back to try again, and it was a long trek back through the dungeon with lots of enemies and some mini-bosses that had to be fought to push blocks and make my way back through the correct series of staircases to the boss. Fortunately, the Patra blocking the door to Ganon's room did not respawn. It became clear immediately that my new magic shield wasn't helping me at all. I was left with little option but to try to land hits on the invisible enemy, unsure if I even could. I was pretty confident I wasn't missing anything so substantial that the fight was unwinnable. Suddenly, I landed a hit, and Ganon reappeared momentarily. The sword worked then. It seemed to be more effective to stay in a single area than chasing him all over the arena. He tended to fire at me from close by, and this reduced the number of positions he could appear in. Sticking to the lower left corner of the room, I landed 3 more hits relatively quickly, and when Ganon reappeared, he was brown and stunned for longer. My heart was pounding a little bit at this point, and I wasn't 100% sure what to do. I was slow grabbing the silver arrows and just tried hitting him. Apparently missing my window, the whole fight basically reset. I returned to the same pattern as well, but was getting smacked around nonetheless. I used my first potion and continued, landing 4 more hits in quick succession after that. This time, I went immediately for the arrows and fired. The shot landed, and did damage, or at least it looked like it. But was he done? I kept firing, but as he exploded into bits, I thought it had just taken the one shot. I'd done it. Ganon's Triforce was left behind, and the next room opened. Inside, Zelda awaited. And that was it. Or was it? Watching the credits, I was struck by how few names were shown. There were like 7 unique developers. I don't know if every person that worked on the game was listed, I hope so, but games have changed so much today. At least many of them, the big ones. Zelda was amazing, even playing it in 2024, and it's always really cool to see fantastic games made by a smaller group, or even a single person. I think the weakest part of this game is its combat. Generally, you just need to brute force your way through things, but of course there are some tactics that help. Ironically, I think I would say that combat is also the weak link in most recent Zelda games, maybe even all Zelda games, with exploration, items, and puzzles being the strongest elements. There are surely also other secrets in the game I didn't find, even though I think I resolved all the clues I had. I found all the critical things, at least, and there were clues to follow to find them. At the end of the credits, a message. Another quest will start from here. This game has a new game plus? I was curious. Back on the character select screen, my death count carried over, and Link was holding a sword with a heart on the left. But I was back down to 3 hearts of life. I loaded in and was back at the very beginning with no items or money, and had to collect a starting sword again, even. Was anything different about this, then? Since it wasn't far, I headed for level 1. There it was, same as always, but inside, I didn't think I remembered gorillas in level 1. Level 1 had been very easy. I wasn't sure. I collected the boomerang again, then I ran into blue gorillas, and a Dodongo. These were not in level 1 before, I was certain. Picking up the map, the dungeon outline was clearly different. Wow, so there's maybe a whole remix of the game to play, even if nothing carries over? Even if only the dungeon internals change, that's pretty significant. I shouldn't be surprised maybe, thinking of games like Super Mario Bros. And how it loops. But it's really only later games that come to mind, like Symphony of the Night, the From Software Souls games, or other modern games that have significant differences on subsequent playthroughs. While this brings me to the close of this adventure, and with it a hint of sadness, that's balanced out by the promise of more if I want to go for it. I think I'll almost certainly have to check it out. If you've stuck with me through this whole story, or just this video, truly, thank you. I'll be back with more as soon as I can, whether it's more retro stuff or preparing for the release of Stalker 2 in a couple of months. Until then, as always, take care.